We have a very big night tonight, but first we're going to hear from the man who has been largely the driving project of the Australian Media Hall of Fame. When Mike Smith, who many of you know as a former editor of The Age, first started this project way back at the start of this decade, his ambitions were fairly modest. In fact, at the first of these 5 dinners, there were only 20 inductees. They all happened to be dead, so it was a good but short night. But it has since grown to a roll call of close to 150 members and many more to be added tonight. So please make welcome to the stage the Chair of the Hall of Fame Advisory Panel, Mr. Mike Smith.
Thank you, Michael, Lord Mayor and guests. Just a few quick points about what the Hall of Fame is, what it isn't, and how we went about it. The project started a decade ago when the internet started grabbing newspaper sales and TV news ratings in big numbers. And the idea was to show that the most powerful journalism, the most effective journalism, was worth paying for and supporting. The sort of journalism that was traditionally found mostly in the nation's big newsrooms that were under commercial threat. We wanted to show that well-supported journalism had been at the heart of most of the great political and social movements and events in our history, had exposed things that were rotten and corrupt and unjust, and had created community support for many great causes. We wanted to do that through the stories of individual journalists who helped shape the history of their genre, their craft, their city, their state, their nation, and in a couple of cases, the world. The key criteria for selection is impact. It's not all about best and fairest, although almost all would fit that description. There are already a couple of ethically challenged people already inducted in the Hall of Fame, but nobody can deny their impact. The Walkley Awards are only 63 years old, and the various state awards are even younger. The Hall of Fame identifies our industry's heroes from 200 years ago. Through their stories, we also realised we were telling the history of journalism in Australia. And it also allowed contemporary journalists to be assessed in an historical context. This is the 7th induction and the 4th dinner. We began with inductions from Victoria, then New South Wales. Tonight's inductions are primarily from the smaller states and territories, plus more from New South Wales and Victoria. Hundreds of people have helped. We've had spotters and researchers in each state, journalists, editors, historians, biographers, librarians. 2 in particular I want to mention: newspaper historian Rod Kirkpatrick, without whom we would have been lost on 19th century journalism, and Dr. Patricia Clark, a specialist on women's writers. Then we had the judges on the advisory panel who helped wade through a mountain of material. Now it's a total of 25 volumes. The judging panellists have included Professor Geoffrey Blainey, the late Harry Gordon, David Broadbent, Sally White, Bridget Griffin-Foley from Macquarie University, Mark Day, Mike Bowers and Chris Mitchell. And then there's the 150 or so writers who have compiled profiles of the inductees for the website and the books. Rough estimate is $10 million worth of pro bono work done by the people in the industry, many of them in this room. And that's apart from the hundreds of hours put in by Press Club staff, particularly Mark Baker and David Fisher. Most interest this evening will, of course, be in the recent or contemporary journalists who come up on stage. But take a few moments to read about the more historical figures summarised in your program. And go to the Press Club website and read about people like John Kirwan, the West Australian Goldfields editor who mobilised the campaign to swing the vote for WA to join the Federation. A pioneer human rights activist called Carl Fielberg, who persuaded London to block the Queensland colony's move to annex New Guinea. He successfully argued that Queensland's treatment of Aborigines disqualified them from administering the Indigenous people of New Guinea. Meet the Victorian newspaper editor who was the only person to serve jail time from the Eureka Stockade for backing the miners. And perhaps our most important discovery in this process, the man who can now be described as the father of the free press in Australia, Andrew Bent, who at around 1:40 p.m. on the 4th of June 1824 in Hobart sent his presses rolling without referring the pages to the government censor, thus beginning the fight to establish a free press. Bent's great-great-great-grandson, Craig Collins, is in the room tonight. Craig and another member of the family are working on a biography of Bent. Andrew Bent won the fight for freedom of the press, and soon other papers were being published free of government censorship. But he won it only after being financially ruined by a vindictive colonial administration and becoming the first editor in Australia to be jailed for libel. It's on the shoulders of people like these that today's outstanding journalists stand. Enjoy meeting them tonight. Thank you.